Before we put the modules in, we need to drill a 3/8 inch hole right here. The junction board is over here. This is where the 12S module is going. You don't actually need to remove the grid charger if you've already installed it. I'm only removing it because there's a lot of glare. Hopefully that makes it a little easier to see. So you see this rib right there and this face right there. We're going to basically drill a hole that's tangent to both of those faces, which basically means this. Like that. So here's our 3/8 inch hole right there. Doesn't have to be perfect. Before we install the battery modules, we need to modify one of these rubber gaskets. The gasket that's closer to the junction board, we can leave the same, but the one that's between the two 18S modules, we need to modify. This is a safety issue and you must do this if you are using the gaskets. So the gasket between the two 18Ss I've just removed, and here's the issue. This is conductive. So when these heater PCBs are contacting here, the section in the middle is high voltage DC. It's isolated everywhere from the system. However, there's a temperature sensor right here that is not. This is a low voltage section, and on the PCB it's fine. It's more than 3 millimeters away or even 4 millimeters away from the high voltage section. Now, as soon as we throw this conductive gasket onto the back, we have now lost that 3 millimeters of gap. So for example, this PCB is only 1 millimeter thick. This trace is less than 3 millimeters from this conductive surface to that high voltage, and therefore, for safety reasons, we need to modify the gasket. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to take a razor blade and we're just going to cut the gasket here so that we're only going to reinstall the middle section of the gasket. On the center piece, we now need to cut the two outer circles off. Okay, the two outer pieces, we're going to just throw those away. And we are left with 5 circles here. So what we're going to do now is come over to our enclosure. When we install the remaining gasket here with 5 rings, it needs to go in the middlemost 5 rings. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You don't want it on either this or the other side's rings because that can actually touch some of the high voltage stuff. So when you go in here to install it, you'll just put it in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you should have the 5 rings here in the very middle. You should have a complete circle of rings that do not have this rubber gasket. So if you fail to do this, you could have some high voltage safety issues. You could also conduct through to some of the high voltage here, which would cause smoke. So don't skip this step. If you're going to use these rubber gaskets with the heater, you can only have the 5 middle rings. Before we install the junction board, we need to install a piece of foam. There's 2 pieces of foam that come with the heater kit. One of them is more square looking and the other one has some cutouts in it. We're going to use the one that has these cutouts in it, and we're going to basically stick it in behind where the junction board goes. Now there's a lip right here that we need to make sure the back edge of this foam stays on the right side of. So my recommendation is to stick this foam in sliding from the right to the left, and you want that edge to hit right there. And we're going to basically stick this foam in like that, and you should have this hole still mostly free, and then both of these holes mostly free as well.